So welcome to episode 3 of season 1. We're joined with Michelle and we're going to be talking about how to build relationships on the road for both business and pleasure. Let's go.
You crazy mother.
And boom, I cannot get enough of that video. Absolutely love it. I need to get some more video clips to put in there because I have a few stock images in there right now just because I used the free trial of Adobe After Effects to make that myself. But I absolutely love it. Could you hear the audio coming through on your end? So I can never hear the audio coming through on this end.
I couldn't hear anything.
No? Damn it. Anyway, doesn't matter. I always come close to cutting the audio off when we make this transition, but we'll see. So everybody that's watching this on Facebook Live, welcome. Please feel free to fire questions our way as we're going through this topic. And to all of you guys listening on the podcast, it's going to be live tomorrow as we're recording this. It'll be on the podcast. All the show notes have been written already, so you can go check all those out at tmdshow.com/S1E3, and you can find all the links to Michelle over there. But Michelle, first off, welcome to the TMD show live. And would you like to introduce yourself to everybody, and then we'll dive right into our topic?
Sure. I just had to share this on my personal page real quick. So I'm Michelle, also AKA known as the Pitch Queen. And I love everything about sales, serving people, helping businesses grow, increase their revenue, how to help people close more deals, get over rejection a lot quicker and all those no's, because I've interviewed a lot of people and I've heard that it usually takes 10 no's to get one yes. And sometimes some people have said 100 no's to one yes. So how to get over that fear and really just make a bigger difference in the world, because I think a lot of us sit behind the scenes and never get your products and services out into the market because of fear, because you're scared, because you don't know what to price your products at, because you could make a list of 100 things, right? Mm-hmm. But the people that actually need you, you're actually doing them a disservice by not telling them about it, by not sharing your gifts, by not sharing your programs, by not sharing your products, because you keep pushing it off one more week. Or, you know what, I'll do that next week. Or, everything you could name in the book. So I am the Pitch Queen. I've sold everything from red chicken enchiladas to $1 million homes to $30,000 online programs to pushing cocktails in bars in college. I've
done a bit of everything.
I've done it all. The probably only thing I've never done is sold vacuums door to door, but pretty much everything in between I did. So, I just want to take my 20 years of experience and share it with everybody.
Yeah, and you're going to be crushing it with the Pitch Queen. I know this is a new venture for you. I remember we sat down and we talked about the name and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's awesome that you've got hats and all that made already. It's incredible. But yeah, so today we're going to be talking about how you built your relationships with people to be able to do all of those cool things, and how much of a difference, business can be when you do build strong relationships with people, and then also how that applies to people when they're traveling as well, because I think there's a lot of crossover between the way you can build relationships with people when you're traveling, just it's just general friendships, to there is when you're building friendships and relationships with people for business as well. So that's the stuff that I wanted to dive into in this episode, sharing a lot of your experiences from the past and how you made these crazy friendships to do all these like wicked deals, because you got like NFL teams as like past clients and stuff like that. It's ridiculous. So that's the kind of stuff I want to talk about, and then also dive into kind of like how people can like apply this for themselves for the first time as well. So is there anything off the top of your head straight away that you want to give the TMD Nation or the dudes and dudettes on like one quick tip for people to make friends and relationships when it comes to business?
Yeah, I would say the biggest tip, and I talked about it a lot last week I have a Facebook Live show too called Coffee is for Closers. And I think the foundation to anything you're going to close or any long-term relationship is really about building the rapport first and then the relationship second. And, you're going to talk a lot about the travel stuff, but even for me, when I'm on a business trip or I'm going somewhere, you never know who you're standing next to, or you never know who you're sitting next to. And that's my tip. That's my advice. Emily came on my show last week, and she met one of her longest term clients at a car wash. Okay.
Wow.
I met my last CIO for my last company, Curtis McConnell. I met him through a guy who I met on a plane ride from SFO Airport to San Diego. On a 1-hour flight, I ended up pitching this guy, and he told me he couldn't help me, which was totally fine. But he said, you know what, Michelle, I have this guy you need to meet. His name's Curtis. He's all about food, perishables. He worked at 1-800-Flowers. And I was like, okay. So just because I started talking to somebody instead of sitting on my phone texting or like ignore, you sit on the plane and you're like, ignore the people to your right and your left. You're like, oh God, I can't believe I have to sit next to them for like 30 minutes to an hour, to 2 hours. But here, get this. So on another flight from San Diego to New York, I met another woman. It was on a red eye, and I was getting ready to pitch my last company to the Vitamin Shoppe. And she looked over. Everyone always watches what I do. So make sure, tip number 2, make sure that you're cool with whoever's sitting to your right or your left, that it's okay for them to see what you're working on, because people want to know. Like they pretend like they're not looking at you, but they really, really, really are. So she's like, oh my God, what are you working on? I said, oh, I'm going to pitch, to a few investors and to a really big retailer on an idea I have. She's like, oh, what is it? And started talking to me. And we were supposed to be sleeping because it was a red eye to New York. But no, we ended up talking for about 3 to 4 hours. Come to find out, very, very, very wealthy individual who was looking for a service like this for herself. And she said she was an investor. And so I ended up meeting her and her husband a couple times in New York. They even offered me their other apartment if I needed a place to stay.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, cool, let's do this. So they didn't end up investing, but my point is that I built a relationship, and I can call her anytime. Her name's Susie, and she lives right in the city in New York. And if I'm stranded or I need a place, I know I can always call her. And I met her on an airplane.
Yeah. I've met like a load of people myself, like traveling, of people that I can, just turn up to a random country, and I've got friends there already. And I can relate to a lot of those stories as well. Not really like, actually one business story actually. So a guy that I had met called Rob, his website's called Stop Living a Boring Life. I think it was Stop Living a Boring. Anyway, he was the first guy that I had met on the road who'd done the whole online business thing. And as weird as it sounded, I didn't really put like 2 and 2 together that you could run an online business and travel at the same time, which is kind of weird because that's what I'm all about now. But he was the person that I kind of just accidentally bumped into, and I was the one person that ended up taking him scuba diving, and then same sort of thing. It was like a 3-hour trip on a boat. We sat down, we talked for like 2 hours, talked about how he kind of like built his business, and now he's got all these tourism agencies like paying for him to travel around. And now, anytime I'm in his neck of the woods, because he lives in Nicaragua, if I'm down in that area, I've got a friend that I can go meet up with, hang out with, potentially sleep on the couch or spare bedroom, whatever he's got going on down there. And it's like you said, it's all because you just didn't sit there and be silent to the person sitting next to you. And I've like I think it was the last episode, I was telling people about how I accidentally had lunch with the former vice president of the United States, and I didn't know who it was. But if I was like sat there and was like super quiet and didn't like just start talking to the guy that came and sat down whilst I was having food, then I wouldn't have a cool story to tell. So not only am I like all about that for business, but then also, you know, just for general like travel anyway. One, you can meet someone that has their own cool stories, has some good business connections, yet you never know the story of the person sitting next to you. So you should always, always, always try and find out what their story is as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree. You've got to talk to people. So I think I said 2 tips, but I forgot what they were already. So do those 2.
Yeah. So I remember I always tell people that it's not even that hard to start talking to people either. You know, generally there's some like small talk is a good way to get started. You know, talk about something that's around you, everyone's general favorite, the weather. But then I always found like, over time you'll like build up like different or like openers that you can do with people. Yeah. And I always find the situational ones always the best. Especially when you like meeting people when you're traveling, talk about like an activity that they've done recently, or something like that, and then you can always start pulling out their story. You know, you might hear there's like a slight accent, so you can start pulling that out, and then you build connections very quickly, especially when you're traveling, because everybody's super open, super friendly to having these types of conversations, that it's not that hard to do, to just start randomly talking to somebody and then being like receptive to that. Now, has that been the same experience for you when you're like making like business connections as well?
Yeah, and I call everything you talk about building rapport. It's like those openers, like what's going to get someone to open up. I was actually on a plane last night, and I offered the lady sitting to my left some tea. I'm like, do you want some tea? You know, just like to have a friendly conversation. Or I sometimes get free drink tickets, but I don't really drink a lot. And to drink up in the air, I really don't drink. So I usually make donations. So I try to strategically sit next to people, especially if you're on Southwest, sit next to people that you think might be a good prospect. You get to choose where you sit. And if I'm flying a different airline, I always like to sit in an upgraded seat, because typically the people that are paying for an upgraded seat is maybe somebody that you actually might want to work with. And I love Lululemon. Like, I think that's all I wear. I think 90% of my wardrobe is from there. So I like look for people wearing Lululemon too, and I'll go sit next to them. I mean, there's so many different things that you can open with, or like you said, what are the openers, you know, that are better than the weather? I mean, you know, practice different things that resonate with people and pick your top 5.
Yeah, like I said, it all comes down to like practice and getting used to it. I mean, just to get started, the weather is a good opener that you can use. But then you figured out like clothing, that's a good opener for you. For me, it's always to do with like the city that you're in or the country that you're in, asking them a question about that, and that normally gets some good stories out of them, especially if, you know, when you are traveling. A lot of people that are in the places that you're going to will have some stories of the things that they've checked out already, or if they've just arrived themselves, they've got some plans and places that they want to check out themselves as well. So, you know, there's definitely a lot of people or a lot of openers that you can do with people. You just need to practice and figure out what ones work the best for you. Now, there's one story that I need to get from you, Michelle, and that is, yeah, you've mentioned it a couple times to me before, and that is how you like landed these like NFL deals and all that kind of stuff. Was that to do with like relationship building to get to those people as well?
Yeah, I call it relationship building at its finest. So I'm just going to specifically talk about the NFL right now, because these stories are so funny. I mean, it's borderline crazy. So I had a company where we made prepared meals before I launched my brand called The Pitch Queen. And we sold customized meals to pro athletes. So I was like, all right, well, where can I meet like the top pro athletes? And there's this thing every year in Indianapolis called the NFL Combine. And I was like, okay, well, we should go there. I mean, I had no idea. So I booked a ticket. I went with my head of sales at the time. Her name's Chin Chin. She lives in Miami. Hey, Chin, if you're watching. But so we go to Indianapolis. We get a hotel. We're like just roaming, literally roaming the halls. Like, all right, every NFL agent in the NFL is there. Every top NFL player is there who's working out to get drafted by a team. Every single coach in the NFL is there. And I remember like going in the convention center where some of the big brands were, like Powerlift, and I don't even know who else was there. And literally walking down, trying to meet at the time all the strength coaches, because the strength coaches were making decisions as to what the players were going to eat and what they were going to have as far as like they got our meal replacement bars or meals. And so that's how we did it. And then I met top agents like Kelly Masters, the top female agent. I actually interviewed her for my podcast. And it's so cool because I met her 8 years ago when she was just starting out. And everyone says, oh, I want to be an agent. It's like the most brutal sales job you could ever choose. And so to make a really, really long story short, we would hang out at all the hotel parties. Like Under Armour and Nike had a suite. We would hang out there and just like meet all these people because they would introduce us to who our ultimate person was, the strength coach. Those were the people at the time making decisions. Now it's the dietitians. And there was a time where all the strength coaches went through one room in the convention center with like the polar heart rate monitor and the TRX bands. And I didn't know we had to have a booth. We didn't have a booth. We just roamed. And I kid you not, we met every single strength coach through making friends and relationships with all the other brands. But one guy got so pissed off that we didn't pay for a booth that we got kicked out of the convention center. I'm not even kidding. We got kicked out. It was the most funny thing because like 5 of the strength coaches we were talking to were laughing. They're like, you guys are the most persistent people we have ever seen. You came here from San Diego. You had no idea what the hell you were doing. But I said, you know what? All of you are in one place at one time. I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
So we went out to dinners. We went out to all the little hotel gatherings. You know, it's like all business deals going on between agents and players and interviews and teams and who's going to pick up this guy and how much are they willing to pay for his contract. And here's 2 girls trying just to sell food because we knew that nutrition was 80% of the player's results. Mm-hmm. And so my pitch to all the agents that I was meeting, well, do you want to make more money? Because if your player plays longer in the league because their nutrition's on point, then they'll have a bigger contract. They won't get injured. They won't lose their contract. So, yeah, it was pretty nuts how we got into that. But, you know, I built a lot of long-term relationships. Like one of the strength coaches with the Seahawks, we're still friends. The New York Rangers and New York Knicks, I know it's hockey and basketball, but I've known that dietitian for so long, and now we're going to be hopefully working with them this year. And, you know, all these teams that have known me as this food girl who roams the halls at the Indianapolis Convention Center. Yeah. I would wear like a fluorescent green hat because our colors were like gray and green, like, I mean, things that make you stand out is what you want to do if you're going to go to a live event and you want people to remember you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that the bit that I think was the most important part in that story was you said you met someone who wanted to be the agent, but at the time they weren't like the big superstar agent that they are now. But you made that relationship early doors, and a lot of people seem to think to make it in sort of like the online business world is that you need to be able to connect with those, you know, those top tier people. They're the ones that are going to, you know, if you can just, you know, get that interview with this person, or if you could just jump on their show, just do a guest post on their website, that's what's going to help you and, you know, send you into the success area that you think that you need. But that's not, you don't have to do it that way. You know, you can go meet up and build relationships with other people on the same level of you or just a little bit ahead of you, because in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or 8 years time, you don't know where that person's going to be. So if you can build relationships with people, no matter what stage or what level they are at in their business, then in the future, that could become a very powerful relationship for both of you. Because again, like you could be ahead as well, so you can like help each other out. It's like Pat Flynn's a big guy in sort of like the online business space, and you hear him talk about some of his like people in his mastermind group. But when you hear him say, you know, like Jamie Tardy and like John Lee Dumas and all that, those people, it's like, but when he made friends with those people, they weren't the big sort of like rock stars that they are now. They were in the exact same position that he was in, trying to figure out this whole online business game. So I really, really like that in that story there, that you make friends with everybody. You don't just try and reach out to the people that are sort of like the top level.
Well, here, let me give you another example. So at this time, a dietitian I was working with, Stephanie, she was working at IMG. So we also went to a lot of professional athlete training facilities. And Stephanie is now a dietitian with a Major League Baseball team in your city, I think, in Toronto. So literally 2 weeks ago, we're able to help her from a relationship that I built 8 or 10 years ago. I don't even know how long I've known Stephanie, but I knew Stephanie when she just started out of college as a dietitian. And now she's the head dietitian of the Toronto Blue Jays in Canada. And we're able to help her with food all over the country because I already had that established relationship. It was a one phone call. So yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so definitely, guys, all of you listening, watching this on live or listening to this on the podcast, please start making friends with everybody in your business, both your peers, the people underneath you level-wise, or the people like just above you. You cannot undervalue relationships, you know, at any point. You don't know where that person's going to be. You know, they could slingshot way ahead of you in terms of sort of like how far they've come along in their business and the relationships that they're going to be able to build, and then they can like connect you with those. It's definitely all about networking. And yeah, you've done a fantastic job doing that from 8-10 years ago all the way to today. And even those relationships from 8-10 years ago are still paying off today as well. Like I've got some friends that I've made when I first got started in this game, like in 2005, 2006, that are still working away today, and they've got some really good circle of friends in the online business space now that, you know, if I have, hey, I'm looking for somebody that can help me do this, they know a load of people. So definitely do not undervalue the friends. And that's the same as well when you're traveling too, like the people that you can meet in the hostels, in the hotels, you know, when you go to do this certain activity. Like when I first went to Australia, I stayed at a hostel in Cairns. And I started chatting with this guy the 3 guys from England and this girl from Holland. And then 3 or 4 days later, one of the English guys and the Dutch girl, the 3 of us, started traveling down the the East Coast for, I think we did like 2.5 weeks. So not only did I like make some new friends, but, you know, I found some travel partners to go and explore some parts of Australia with. So again, it doesn't matter who it is that you're trying to connect with, especially early days. For those of you first getting started in the online business, whether it's traveling or, you know, you want to travel, definitely don't undervalue relationships that you can build today. Don't always aim for those top tier people who are very hard to get hold of. Like Pat Flynn, for example.
I have ways for that. Wait.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll dive into that in a second then. But point being, don't just go after those top tier people. But that being said, now you can share your tips.
So I have a building relationships guide on like what I've actually done step by step that you guys can get. And I know LBT put in the notes, but like, I'll give you an example. So I met John Lee Dumas probably 1 or 2 years ago. You know, he actually inspired me to think like there's something else. And what am I really, really, really great at from my last company? But I met him all because of Sean Croxton, who was in the health space at the time, who loved Fitzy. And we were really good friends. And this is my key tip. You have to ask. I asked Sean, hey, do you know anyone how I can get an interview on a podcast? I didn't even know what the hell a podcast was at the time. And he said, yeah, John Lee Dumas, that would probably be a good one because he loved to interview entrepreneurs. And I was like, all right. So I moseyed my way down. This is when they lived in Pacific Beach, and I brought him and Kate a box of food, and they loved it. And we hung out for like 30 minutes, but I offered to bring him food. So if you have like a product-based business or something that can help the other person, think about actually like giving them something, because no one's going to turn you down. I promise. You just have to ask. And from there, I met John, and now, he actually did my opening interview for my podcast. I interviewed him for my show. Then, like you mentioned earlier, Pat Flynn, I knew I met Pat like once with John a long time ago, but I said, oh, it would be so cool to interview Pat. And if it wasn't for John, he would have never done the interview as quickly as he did with me, because I had this relationship that I had built in advance. And I also asked him, I said, Pat, I reached out to your assistant, but can I get your direct email? Because I know you've got 30 minutes way before September. And he's like, okay. So again, all you have to do is ask, but I think that's what's going to set you apart from everybody else. Because I would say 99% of people don't ask.
Yeah, and then also 99% of the people don't follow up afterwards either.
Oh, yeah, I got a whole follow-up game. We probably don't have time for that. We can do that another time, but it's called being professionally annoying. I have a whole system.
I like that.
Yeah, I've been told so many times that I am so annoying, but I do it in like a strategic, professional way that it's really hard for people to tell me no, and then they kind of feel guilty. I've gotten told no a lot, but that's on them. It's their problem, not mine.
Yeah, and again, that story there just reiterates exactly what I said before. You don't undervalue the friendships that you can make, because you don't know who they can then connect you with. And what's his name? Jason Gaynard, and mine's going blank, the guy from ClickFunnels, Russell Brunson. They talk a lot about how instead of having sort of like marketing budgets, they have, I can't remember the word they use, but basically they set aside a budget to be able to you talk about you took food over to John Lee Dumas to help build that connection. Well, they both talk about doing the same sort of thing, where they'll spend money on building these sort of like packages or these welcome boxes that they'll then send to people that they want to start building a relationship with, just saying, hey, I know you do such and such online or such and such with business. I've got these things. I thought this stuff might be of interest to you. It might help you out. I just wanted to send that your way. Doesn't ask for anything at the time. Say, just give. And compared to, just sending someone like an email, actually sending them a physical thing that they can, hold, touch, and know it's like from you. That's at least going to get you into the door and get noticed. So later on, you can send like another small little thing, and then when you do send that email, your name's going to be recognized by that person. And then when it does come to asking something or whatever, then you're more likely to get the yes down the line. So definitely do the ask, but then there's definitely some like sneaky little ways that you can get in front of those people.
They're strategic.
/ sneaky.
Well, so I coach a couple of women right now, and I always say this, like, think about your audience and think about what they'd want, and come up with 10 things that you can do that are these things. So like one of them, Bree, actually, she bought passion planners. She is a branding person, so she did like a free Facebook header for them, like a free cup. It doesn't take her a lot of time, maybe 30 minutes, but she came up with 10 different things that she can send to a prospect to build that relationship that A, doesn't cost her much, and B, doesn't take a lot of her time. So if you don't have a physical product of your own, there are ways. You just have to think outside the box, and we brainstorm for like 30 minutes, 10 different things. Or like for me, I don't have I don't have food anymore to bribe people with. It sucks. I lost my gifting power. I was like, oh man, I had something really good. Hopefully my Fitzy business will continue. I'll know shortly once these Brians make up their mind. But Brian, if you're watching, it's time to make this happen, because those red chicken enchiladas, man, I've been craving them. But, for me, it's like, I'll give you a hat, I'll give you a mug, John's Freedom Journal, the Mastery Journal, my friend Angelia, the Passion Planner. Like, all these things are good tools that any entrepreneur would need. So now I'm thinking, okay, what do entrepreneurs need, and what can I be of service and help with? So that's all you guys need to do. And I would certainly think of 10 things.
Yeah, and it's all about the give, give, give. Don't ask for anything. Don't try and take anything away. It's all about the give, give, give. So, Michelle, we are at the half-hour mark. So before we switch, I know, time's flying. Before we go ahead and dive into our rapid-fire question session, do you have any final tips that you want to give people who are diving into the relationship building thing for the very first time?
I mean, oh my God, we talked about so many. I have way too many tips to keep going. We could probably talk for another 4 hours.
Give me one. Give me one.
All right. Just do what we talked about. So go make a list of 10 things that you can start giving to people. Start talking to the people that you're around in line at Starbucks, at the car wash, at the grocery store. If you guys are online and never leave the house, start talking to a few people in Facebook groups or other things. Like, literally, if you can try to give them something of value, right? Like if you're in a group and you're like a really good Facebook person and someone like me writes a question like, how do I get my pixel to work? Like, answer my question. Don't ignore it, because that's going to build a relationship with that other person. So you can do it online, but practice doing it in person, because that's where it gets a little difficult. And if you're going on a plane ride, start talking to the person in line, to your right, to your left. I sometimes do choose the middle seat if I have the option, because I get 2 people to talk to versus 1. So there you have it.
I like it. And yes, definitely, this doesn't just apply to being in person as well. If you're connecting with people online, then start participating in Facebook groups, or, when you do see somebody asking for help and it is something that you can help them with, do it, because you don't know where that could lead in the future. Just take that 2 minutes to answer that person's question and see what happens in the future. Cool. Well, I think it's now time to jump into our rapid fire question session. Michelle, are you ready for this?
I am. What are you going to ask me, though?
You're going to have to find out. You're going to have to wait. One at a time. I want the very first answer that comes to your head. So, question number 1 is, what's your favorite country that you've been to so far?
My favorite country? I love Mexico. I love chips and guacamole.
Perfect. Number 2, what is the last YouTube video or movie you've watched?
The last YouTube video I watched was on how to save your Facebook live show to your computer.
Practical. Number 3, what's the weirdest thing that you've eaten?
The weirdest thing I've eaten, probably caviar when I was in Moscow. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's not my favorite. Number 4, mountains or beaches?
Bondi Beach in Australia.
Specific beach. I love it even more. Number 5, if you could meet one person, living or dead, who would it be?
I would want to meet Oprah.
Oprah, like it. Number 6, are you a day person or a night owl?
I am a day person. I like to go to sleep at 8 p.m. if I had it my way, but usually it's around 10, 11, or 12.
I'm certainly the opposite. Number 7, what is your go-to pump me up song?
I don't have an actual song. I go to iTunes Radio and I play the hip hop workout radio station.
Perfect. Number 8, what is your favorite non-English swear word, if you have one?
It's something in Russian, but I can't say it because I forgot it.
Okay, well, do you know what it meant?
Nope.
Oh, okay. But it's Russian. Your favorite swear word's in Russian, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Perfect. And number 9, what is your favorite podcast apart from this one? Or live show. Podcast or live show apart from this one.
Okay, I have 3.
Oh, go.
Sean Croxton's Quote of the Day Show, Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income, and John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur on Fire.
Love it. And then finally, can you give me your best travel story that you have in under 5 minutes?
Oh, yeah, I can do that. So, because I built such great relationships, one of my best friends is Marshall Falk, and he asked me 2 summers ago, well, what are you doing next week? Or it was like in 2 weeks. I said, I don't know what I'm doing in a week or two. He's like, do you want to go to Australia and teach the U.S. military fitness classes and just basically get a 1 week paid vacation? I said, yes. What do I need to do? He's like, I need your passport, and you need to call this girl, and they're going to pay you like $1,000, and you get your tickets, everything's covered, and we're just going to have fun. So I went to Australia with Marshall Falk, Tori Holt, Justin Watson. We went and stayed in Sydney for a couple days. That's when we went to the beach, and we flew into Alice Springs. I got to see a lot of the culture and kangaroos and, the Aborigines. We actually got to talk to a lot of them, so that was kind of cool.
Cool.
And it was about a week's long. It was in the summertime here, so it was really cold there. It was like winter time. But, it all goes back to what we've been talking about for the last half hour. What I've been talking about for the last month on my Facebook Live shows is building relationships and rapport. And, when I first met Marshall, I didn't even know who he was. So that was even really funny. Now he's a Hall of Fame. He's in the Hall of Fame in the NFL and at San Diego State, and just like a really genuine person and great friend of mine. But because of that, I was able to go on this trip. And for those of you that don't know, I have a fitness background too. I used to teach fitness classes, but I retired from that career about 6 years ago. I couldn't show up on time anymore because of all the sales calls. I'm like, I think I'll do sales calls and do this stuff instead of going to work out, because I had to work out really early in the morning. So yeah, that was my travel story, and it was awesome. And I hope we get to go on another trip again soon. I asked him a couple weeks ago, like, when are we going on another trip? But I mean, it was awesome. It was so fun.
Yeah. Everybody listening to the show right now absolutely loves travel as well. So Michelle, thank you so much for coming on to the show today, sharing some of your relationship building tips. And I absolutely appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this with me. If people wanted to reach out to you online, where's the best place that they can find you?
The best place is my website, thepitchqueen.com. And everything is there. You can see my live show. You can see the podcast. So I made an ebook for everybody of like the top 10 things that I wish I would have known before starting a business that no entrepreneur will ever tell you.
Awesome.
And it's really good. So you can get on my website, and then you have the link for how to build relationships. And, it really works. I just say you have to take action and make it happen.
Yep, it is all over on the show notes for today's episode. So just go and check that out. tmdshow.com/S1E3. So Michelle, again, thank you so much for coming onto the show today. Again, really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you again in the near future.
I would love that. Thank you.
Awesome. Take care.
Bye.
And there you have it, everybody. That is another episode wrapped up in the books. Absolute pleasure having Michelle here on the show. She is a smart cookie. She's got some cool travel stories. We spent several hours chatting in the past and about pretty much everything. Got to meet her little assistant that was in the background there, Amy. Hi, Amy, if you're still watching. I look forward to chatting with you again some more as well. So, guys, if you are listening to this live on the Facebook group, make sure you've clicked the little like button. If you want to come join the Facebook group, you can do that as well. Dudebrew.com will redirect you over there. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, make sure you hit the little subscribe button on whatever podcast player that you're listening to this on, and make sure you tune in to next week's episode. And we've got Amy coming on to the show, and we're going to be sharing some awesome travel stories. She's done a shit ton of travel in the past, and we're going to be diving into all of her cool, wicked travel stories. So, dudes and dudettes, I'm going to call it quits on yet another episode, all wrapped up in the books. So guys, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day for tuning into this episode, and I will see you all in the next one. So have a great day, have a great week, and I will catch you all later. Peace out, fist bump.